Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the Berkeley sockets. First of all, we will see the concept of Berkeley sockets. It is considered as the application programming interface and it is used for the internet sockets and Unix domain sockets. It is considered for the inter-process communication. Its implementation is done as a library of linkable modules. Its origination is done from the 4.2 Berkeley software distribution Unix, which is released in 1983. The evolution of Berkeley sockets is done from the de facto standard into the component of the POSIX specification. The synonymous name for the Berkeley sockets is the POSIX sockets. Here, POSIX sockets are considered as derived from the Berkeley software distribution and it is considered as the first implementation in the Berkeley software distribution. Now we will discuss about the concept of socket. Socket is nothing but the abstract representation or handle for the local point of a network communication path. We have to represent the socket considering the Berkeley Sockets API and it is represented as a file descriptor or file handle in the Unix philosophy. Considering the functionality of the socket, it acts as a common interface for input and output for the streaming of data. Now we will discuss about the various socket API functions. First function is the socket. As the name implies, it is used for the creation of new socket of a particular socket type. It is identified by an integer number and it allocates the system resources to it. Bind. It is used on the server side and associates a socket with a socket address structure, that is a specified local port number and IP address. Next is the listen. As the name implies, it is used on the server side and it causes a bound TCP socket to enter listening state. Connect. It is used on the client side and it's assign a free local port number to a socket. In case of TCP socket, it causes an attempt to establish a new TCP connection. Next one function is the accept. It's used on the server side. It accepts the received incoming attempt to create a new TCP connection from the remote client and creates new socket associated with the socket address pair of this connection. Then there are the socket API functions like send, receive, write, and read or send to and receive from. These all are used for the sending and receiving of data either to or from a remote socket. Then comes the close function. It causes the system to release resources allocated to a socket. In case of TCP, the connection is closed. Then comes the get host by name and get host by address. These are used to resolve the host names and addresses considering the IP version 4 only. Then comes the select function. It is used to suspend waiting for one or more of a provided list of sockets to be ready to read, ready to write, or that of errors. Then comes the poll function. It is used to check the state of the socket in a set of sockets. The set can be tested to see whether the socket can be returned to read from, or if an error has occurred. Then comes the get socket option. It is used to retrieve the current value of a particular socket option for the specified socket. Then comes the set socket option. It is used to set a particular socket option for the specified socket. We have just now discussed the various TCP socket functions. Now, these all are represented considering a diagrammatic representation, considering the client side and the server side. On the client side, it is having the socket and they are considered connected using the connect function, which establish the connection amongst the client and server by making use of a three-way handshake. It is considering the sending of data from the client side, which is received at the server side, considering the receive function. Then again the receive function at the client side, which receives the data sent by the server, and it is having the loop both at the client send and receive and at the server receive and send. Then it considers the close socket function, which is the message from the client to the server to end the communication, and again the close socket at the server for closing the communication. Now we will consider the various modes of operation. So when we consider about the blocking socket, it will not return the control until it has sent or received few or all data specified for a particular operation. It's normal for a blocking socket to not send all the data at once. The application must have a check for returning the value to find out how many bytes have been sent or received, and it must resend any data which is not already processed. So when we are using the blocking sockets, it will consider the accept function, as it may still block after indicating the readability if client disconnects during the connection phase. Now, when we consider the non-blocking socket, it will return whatever it has in the receive buffer and will continue onwards. If not written correctly, the programs which are using the non-blocking sockets are susceptible to the race conditions due to the variation in the network link speed. The socket is typically set to the blocking or non-blocking mode using the FCNTL or IOCNTL functions. For all this discussion on the Berkeley sockets, I have used this link as the reference. Thank you all.